this is a story about thinking differently on things that we all see and all know, but really do not think about. It all began back in the 1990s, when I was playing the bass guitar in a guitar quartet. And this is from one of our concerts at the Bellman Museum in Stockholm, a very nice museum which you really should visit if you can. And one of the pieces that we played them did look like this. It's an arrangement of one of Bellman's epistles. And as you can see, it's sort of standard musical notation. The voices are lined up on top of each other, and you have note lines, you have notes and various musical signs up here. And nothing special about this, really. By the very same time, I was involved, as Bengt said, in working in a Swedish telecommunication company with the development of the third generation of mobile systems. Now, you know, it's in the fifth generation rolling out now. But one of the pieces that we developed was a so-called multi-chip model. It looked like this. It's a very complicated and complex piece of hardware that performs various processing tasks in the system. And in order to coordinate the development of this particular piece, we used a process model, looked like this, kind of complicated. But what it really is that you have some kind of input documents here that are being processed by the various activities down here. And the result is another set of documents that is then switched over to the manufacturer of the actual circuit. And in between here, you have the sort of a flow of information between documents and activities. And one day, it sort of dawned upon me that these two models looked kind of similar, you know. And by that time, I had also begun working with my PhD. Bengt was my supervisor. And I became interested why these looked very similar, although they were used in various completely different situations. So I decided to take a closer look at this, starting with the musical score and sort of ask him, what is it in this score that actually informs me how to play? And after some thinking, the first thing I came about was that the actual score is actually the activity. It represents the activity that is, this is what I'm going to focus my attention on during playing this piece. And by focusing attention to something, that also means that you do not focus attention to other things. Other things falls into the background. So, for example, here in the background there are some nice paintings, and the bookshelves up here are certainly not relevant for this particular activity. And that means that I, in my mind, has to project some kind of context around what I'm doing, context of relevance, and other things I don't have to care about. So besides the objects, there's also contextualizing dimension in this score here. And the most obvious one, of course, is the temporal dimension, the temporal score. I have to play the notes in a certain temporal order here. And for each moment in time, I also have to find the particular place on the guitar neck where I'm going to press a string down and pluck a certain note. So the score here also illustrates some kind of a spatial dimension here. And finally, there is also this normative dimension indicated by these various musical signs. So the score actually conveys to me a different number of dimensions that enables me to play. And it's very easy to see, this notation is actually more than 1,000 years old. And that makes you really think about how is it still around? How come it's still around? If it hadn't been effective for my playing or any kind of playing, this kind of notation would have been gone for a long time. And it's fairly easy to see that these dimensions are also present in the process model that we used. And I thought a lot about that. And then one day came the sort of eureka moment when I realized that these dimensions are actually reflections of innate mental capabilities that we need to actually act in the world. Mental capabilities that we're all endowed with at birth. And this means that in order to participate in any activity whatsoever, I need to have the mental capabilities to attend to an object. I have to disregard the irrelevant thing, and I have to make some kind of spatial orientation and temporal anticipation of what I'm going to do, and habitualizing actions. And then, of course, when one activity is finished, I need to refocus to another activity. And all these are mental capabilities that are actually necessary for acting in the world. So, for example, if one of these are disabled for some reason, we can take, for example, the spatial orientation capability. That brain areas that contributes to that is the hippocampal and entorhinal areas sitting in the brain. And if I would be so unlucky to actually have a lesion in one of these areas right now, I couldn't find my way out of this room, actually. So, to illustrate this, I will show this video. I hope this works. It has some problems with the computers, as you know. This is my grandchild, Karin. By the time this video was taken, she was 9 months old. And the situation is that they sit in the kitchen with her parents, and her parents are trying to teach her some Swedish words like mamma, which is mommy, lampa, which is lamp, and daddy, which is papa, which is daddy. So let's see if we can get this working then.
Vart är mamma? Där är mamma. Ja, där är jag. Vart är lampan då? Vart är lampan? Där är lampan. Bra. Var är pappa? Pappa. Där är pappa, ja. Bra, applåder.
What you have here is that a human being that has some innate capabilities like attending, some focus, and refocusing that focus to another thing. She also has some kind of concept formulation because she actually knows what lamp is, but she cannot yet talk about that. And she probably also has those other mental capabilities like spatializing, temporalizing, habitualizing, but you can't see that in this particular movie. But of course, these innate capabilities that she is born with cannot actually be developed further if they weren't for a sort of pre-existent social cultural environment consisting of her parents, language, norms, artifacts, whatsoever. So what we have here really is that as a human being, you're sort of born into, cast into a ready-made social environment. And to begin with, of course, that social environment actually tremendously impact the child, of course. But it actually goes the other way around, as anybody who has become a parent knows that as soon as they know she will have a child, their whole life changes. You know, the child impacts the surrounding around her as well. So in essence, what we have here is that individual impacts the society, and the society impacts the individual. And there can never, in fact, there can never be an individual without. There can never be an individual without a society, and there can never be a society without the individual. So what's in here is actually reflected out there, and this is something we seldom think about. Mostly we think about the social as some kind of power beyond our own capability to understand and to do something about. There are just social facts out there. So, for example, here is the Aesir god Thor with his flashing hammer, fighting other gods and intervening in people's lives. And there was a time, when people actually believed in the existence of this deity, and there are still some people that actually do that. So, if this then is an allegory of the dire situation that mankind is in today, sort of alone in the sort of fragile vessel on the open sea and threatened by various monsters like the imminent climate catastrophe. We need to remember actually that these monsters are of our own making. We have created them, and realizing that, we also realize that we can make them go away, we can make them crumble. We do not have to accept things as they are. We can think and act differently in all the dimensions that evolution has empowered us with. We can find alternative objectives, alternative goals for our societies. We can find alternative ways of working towards these goals. And we can find alternative norms to live by. And we can also find other ways to live together, to find unity in diversity. There's no need for despair, actually. Another word is really possible. And now it's up to all of us to start working towards that in any way we can. Thank you for your attention.